I started my first business at 16 and my second business at 19 years old. Now I'm 20 and I'm running my new business full time. People tend to act like it's a really risky thing to start a business at a young age or go full time with a business when you're in your early 20s. But that's not always the case. And starting a business at a young age taught me so much that I wouldn't have known if I just kept my full-time job. So let's get into some of the things that starting a business at a young age taught me and why I would recommend anyone around in their early 20s to do it as well. So when you start your very first business, your main goal should actually be to focus on learning new skills. You sort of go into your first business and you're like, I'm gonna get rich off this, like I'm gonna make so much money. That really shouldn't actually be your goal. My first business was a crochet business, so it absolutely was not scalable. I gained a lot of Instagram and YouTube followers, and then it definitely turned into like a sort of full-time income at some point, but it wasn't something that you can necessarily get rich off of. Like I sold digital products, so crochet patterns. I made free tutorials for the plushies, which was what I had on my YouTube, and then I posted like 5 times a week on my Instagram. And it genuinely taught me so much that when I sort of pulled away from crochet, it had given me the skills to start a completely new business in a new area and succeed. Now, I would say that my crochet business did succeed pretty well for a crochet business, I guess. Like I was making about full-time income from it, but it also wasn't like sustainable for me. I was having some shoulder problems. Crochet was getting to be too painful for me. And when you put out free tutorials like every week, people expect that from you. And then when you're not putting out free content and they're like, well, why are you making us pay for this? You always put out free content. So I would say that my crochet business, it wasn't a failure. I learned like a ridiculous amount from it. I earned a solid amount of money, so a full-time income for a little while there, but I also learned that it wasn't scalable. So it wasn't something that I wanted to do in the long term or for the rest of my life, especially when trends change so quickly, and crochet was kind of a huge trend at the time. So some of the skills that you want to focus on when you're starting your first business, whether you're 13 or you're 25, doesn't really matter, but you really want to learn how to do sales and you want to learn how to do marketing. So in my crochet business, I had to learn how to market myself, market my patterns and my free tutorials using purely social media. I didn't have any money for paid ads, and I don't think that would have worked very well anyway. So I learned how to convince people, you need to go to the link in my bio, you need to click on my tutorials and check that out. I learned how to persuade people to buy my written patterns instead of just watching my free tutorials, because it was probably worth more of their time if they just went and bought the written pattern rather than going through the whole free tutorial and watching all the ads as well. So probably the number one thing that you can learn off starting your own business is how to market yourself, how to market your products and your services. That is so important for business. And then if you start a business like my second business, which is what I'm doing now, which is social media marketing, then you learn how to actually call people up and talk to them, which is obviously not something that our generation loves to do. Like sales is definitely not my favorite thing, but doing cold calls and cold emailing and talking to people for the first time on discovery calls, all of that is such useful skills that I didn't necessarily learn during my first business, but I'm learning them all now. The next thing is like, I learned how to build a website. I didn't have the money to pay for someone to build my own website. And then I looked at the prices of like using Squarespace and I was like, oh my God. So in university, I had a free elective and one of the options for that was a coding class. It was completely irrelevant to my degree, but I thought I'd give it a go. And during that time, I learned how to code my own website using like CSS, and I think we used like Visual Code Pro or something, Visual Studio or something like that. So all of these things that like I sort of forced myself to learn that I never expected to learn because I started my own business. Then as well, there's like how to network with people. That's kind of similar to talking to people on the phone, but it's really like when you meet people in real life, you find out they have a business. My brain's immediately going, oh, I run a social media business. I work directly with brands that have like 10 to 20 employees working on building their social media presence. Like I'm going to bring this into the conversation. I want to talk to them about it. I want to learn about their business. Like that's generally not what most young people are thinking when they meet someone who runs a business. So you learn how to think like a business owner. Even if your first business is a complete failure, you learn all of these different skills that are so important. It will genuinely set you up for your future if you learn all of those skills. The next thing that I learned by watching a ridiculous amount of YouTube videos on business at 15 years of age is that it is really hard to get rich or make a lot of money off working a regular full-time job, especially when you live in a high cost of living area, which I do, houses here are like on average like 20 times a regular person's income. And like one of my goals was always that like I wanted to own my own home. And I realized that working a full-time job, I wasn't going to be able to do that. Or I would have to wait until I was 40 or 45 or had double income. Unless you are working in medicine or law or like in a big tech company and working like 12-hour days, and then maybe if you're a doctor, then obviously you're working inconsistent hours maybe, then it is very hard to be a high income earner. Now, when I started my business, making a lot of money was not the goal. My goal was actually just to have freedom. I kind of wanted a lifestyle business where I could travel overseas for a couple of weeks at a time and still work while I was overseas. I think when I had my first full-time job and I realized, hey, I actually can't take weeks off. You know, they sort of control when we take weeks off. They want us to take 2 weeks off at Christmas when everyone else is having time off. And then we only get like 1 extra week a year. I thought, oh, like I don't love that. Obviously, welcome to adulthood, but it's not lovely having someone like control when you can take time off work, especially when you have a chronic illness, which I do. And unfortunately, that meant when I got really fatigued last year when I was working my full-time job, I couldn't take time off. And then luckily I quit before this year because I had a bunch of surgeries at the start of the year. That would have used up all my sick leave, probably like a good portion of my annual leave as well. Like it just wasn't realistic for me to keep a full-time job. So with my health issues and also the fact that I wanted like more freedom, a business just seemed like the right path to go down. And I guess it's about 10 months later now, and I would still say it was the right path to go down for me. It's just like little things, like I'm able to avoid peak hour traffic, for example. I can go grocery shopping in the middle of the day when there's not 50 million people around. I can go to the gym or go to the pool and everyone's mostly at work. Things like that, just the little things that give you freedom, was the original reason why I wanted to start the business. You know, I can go to appointments when I need, and I don't have to call up my boss and be like, please let me go to this appointment. It's really important for my health. Like I am my own boss. I can be like, oh yeah, well, we need to go to that appointment, obviously. The other thing I learned is that people will not understand what you are doing and they will think that it is super risky. I've had a lot of people my age tell me that it feels way too risky for me to be running a business before I was in a full-time job for like 2 years, because I only lasted 5 months at my full-time job before my health issues got too bad and I started my business. So I've had a lot of people my age go like, I could never do that until like later in life. And I'm like, well, I'd rather do it now because I feel like it's less risk when I don't have a mortgage and I don't have kids. And then there's people older than me who are about 20 years older than me who think that I'm just doing it as a little side hustle or a little fun thing. And they go, oh yeah, you'll have a full-time job eventually, don't you worry. And I despise being told that. It actually like shocks me because I'm like, well, I'm actually not gonna have a full-time job. I have proven that with my health issues, I cannot maintain a full-time job. And I hated having a full-time job, and I have the ability to run a business. Why would I not continue running a business? So you will get a lot of people telling you that it is useless, it is risky, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your career. And I would say that if you have a good business set up and you're really putting work into it, and it is not something insanely risky like day trading or something along those lines that doesn't really count as a business, or I don't know, drop shipping, for example, but you're not putting any work into the branding or anything like that. If it's something that you actually care about, you know a bit about business, and you've proven that you can make money off freelancing, for example, then I think there's no reason why you shouldn't go for it. Because even if it doesn't succeed, as I said, you will learn so many skills that you wouldn't learn if you were just working a full-time job. And speaking about drop shipping, I would say the next most important thing that I learned is that you need to start a business that you care about. If you do not care about your business, then you will not stick around to keep doing it. You will get sick of things after 2 months when things get hard and you're not seeing results. Because you don't enjoy doing it and you don't really care about the concept, you will dip out and your business will not last very long at all. I see a lot of people on TikTok advertising, oh, you know, post for TikTok shop and I'm earning like over 20K months doing drop shipping and all of that. You really need to actually start a business that you personally care about, that you're excited to wake up every day and like invest more time into this. Your focus should not be on earning money because you will hate it so much if that is your only goal. So starting a business at a young age taught me a fair amount, but I would say the main things are it's okay to fail. The main thing you actually want to focus on is learning skills so that if it fails, at least next time round, you know these things that you didn't in the first place. It is easier to make a lot of money off of business than in working a full-time job if you know what you're doing. Most people won't understand what you're doing and they'll think that you're being really risky, and you need to start a business that you care about. So if you do want to start a business at a young age, absolutely go for it. If you're doing it on top of your uni degree or your part-time or full-time job, just go for it, see how it goes. And then, you know, if it's a service business, once you have enough clients, you can bring it on full-time. And I think doing it young is the best age to do it at because you can always go back and you can restart your career again. I'm gonna make a lot more videos about running my business and probably delve into a little bit more about the behind the scenes of our business because I run a social media marketing agency, but I don't really talk a lot about what happens behind the scenes. So if you want to see more videos like this, then make sure to comment and subscribe, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. See you in the next video.